Yo, welcome to another episode of the BJJ Goons podcast. I am your host, Tim, the Mushmaster Spriggs, and as always, my co-host is
Nico Ball. No new Nico here. What's up, everybody?
What's good? Today we have a very special guest. She is a black belt under Caio Terra. She is a European Open and Asian Open champion, KRISTINA BARLAAN. Good afternoon, KRISTINA.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hey. So I think on the podcast, the only other female guest other than me that's now the co-host has been Erin, right? Who is a good friend of KRISTINA's.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to see more girls out here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
How have you been during this COVID situation? How have you been dealing with it?
Oh man, it's been all over the place. Obviously we were right in the middle of getting ready for Pans when it first got lockdown happened. So I was like, well, that sucks. And then I spent 3 months on the East Coast with my boyfriend over in Baltimore. So that was good. I figured since I can't work, can't do anything, might as well be stuck indoors for 3 months with someone I like. But now that I'm back in California, I had the idea, I was like, well, things are opening up, maybe start going back to work. But literally as soon as I got here, things started closing down again, and it's just been all over the place. But other than that, been holding up pretty well. I forgot how to people, but other than that, I think I'm doing pretty well.
Okay, So were you on the East Coast when things like quarantine hit, or did things start getting bad and you're like, I'm going to peace out to someplace where I want to be for 3 months?
Pretty much when it started hitting. It started in March when people were like, okay, we're gonna start closing things down. March really sucked, right? I had all these seminars and working opportunities set up, and I was like, man, they're all getting canceled. So I was like, wow, this kind of sucks. And then that first couple of weeks, we're just like, all right, we're just gonna be twiddling our thumbs, trying to figure out what to do. I had already had a ticket to go see him anyways, so it was kind of just good timing. And then once I got out there, that's pretty much everything was already closing down. I mean, there were pretty much 10 people on that flight to go there, and just having a face mask and having everything. So it was just super quiet. And then when I was out there, everything was had all the regulated hours, and there was no classes going on, so it's literally just me and him and this big gym. So it's just kind of well, at least we have the space and we have our own our own time, because usually it's always people all over the time, all over the place. I'm always at the gym, he's always at the gym, or we're always dealing with people. So it was just kind of this weird time where it's just wow, it's oddly quiet. So I feel that was almost a little harder to deal with, just with how quiet it was, as opposed to always having that hustle and bustle that you usually have every single day with Jiu Jitsu. So I hope I answered that question right.
Yeah, no, that was great. So you said you had a lot of seminars and everything planned and whatnot. And I know me and Tim talk about the financial thing a lot. So as a black belt and somebody that what I see from social media, you seem to make most of your money either teaching or seminars or stuff like that. So how much money do you make off of seminars and seminars you have planned? And when they get canceled, do you have a saving from past seminars, or do you rely on future seminars to finance everything? So basically when things got cut off, as a professional athlete, did you have a safety net, or were you just
Yeah, I did have a safety net, which is thank God, I always make sure that I have a good amount of money saved up. So anytime that I do teach seminars, there's always literally my money only goes to two things. It's either my bills and my food, right? So it's just kind of and then any time that I am traveling, people are always like, oh my God, you're going on so many vacations. I'm like, dude, these aren't vacations, these are work, but they kind of look like vacation. I get to go to work in really cool places, right?
Yeah.
When I get to go through tours throughout Asia or other states and stuff like that, wow, you get to see the world. I'm like, yeah, but I'm working, so there's always a way. But yeah, it was a really big financial hit. So there was for 3 months, it was just kind of man, you just see your bank account going down and down and down and down and down. But well, at least I'm able to pay off you know, like my bills, but like I also don't have any money coming in. So it definitely was like, yeah, like stressful. But at the same time, I also know that I wasn't spending money as much either. Like as far as like I don't have to spend money on gas. I'm not driving my car anywhere. Um I'm not doing like the commuting that I would usually do. So but yeah, thankfully I had that fund, you know, just a little, you know, little bit of savings so that to make sure that I'm not going to be like in the red. And then pretty much once I got back to California, um the gym over at HQ, like they were able to help us all out, like all the instructors get like unemployment, so that like that was a huge help too. So there was income coming in, but it's, you know, it's not the same as being able to work and being able to teach, because I do make all my money through teaching and opportunities like that. So yeah, it was it was stressful for a little bit.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, people don't understand. It's just like, yeah, this jujitsu stuff is like, it's a lifestyle, and this is literally how we make everything happen. And if I don't get to like teach my seminars, which it's like, you know, even if I just teach 1 or 2 seminars in, or even like one seminar on like a smaller workshop, you know, that'll set me for like the whole month, you know. Plus that doesn't even include all like the other classes that I'll teach throughout like the week or throughout the month over at HQ, which also like just helps like like I'm getting like my private lessons too. Like I haven't been able to do private lessons, and that's also another big place that I get my income. So it's like having to just shut everything down all of a sudden is just kind of like, ooh, wow, that's rough. So we
How's
make it work
COVID? How has
though. Was
COVID
it?
affected your training?
Oh shit, I haven't trained like really barely anything. Like okay, it's funny because like, you know, like, oh well, you have a boyfriend, you
In the
know,
gym,
who
you were
wants to
in
train.
lockdown in the
Yeah.
gym. Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
where I was going though. I was like,
Yeah, it was like you had the perfect opportunity to like train every single day. It's like, yeah, I definitely could have, but I also didn't have any pressure on me to like feel like, see, like old me who like got super burnt out from training every day and like had that mentality like, no, I need to train, because if I don't train, then I'm gonna be behind, and if I'm behind, then I'm not gonna be relevant. Like it was just this whole real big like mental case that just led to like a really big burnout. So luckily during that time, I wasn't looking at it from like that anxious point of view. I only trained if I felt like training, but I didn't feel like the pressure, like I need to train in order to make myself feel relevant, in order to make myself feel important. Um, but I did train every now and then, but yeah, it definitely was not that intensive. Like I'm super out of shape right now. Um, Although if I were to train, it's not like information fell out of my head, you know, like
yeah.
everything is still there, but definitely um, I'm just a little mushy and a little soft and a little just out of breath. But yeah, I really have not trained that much. But when I do get to train, it feels normal, other than just being out of breath after a little bit, depending on who I roll with, of course, though too. So towards the end of the 3 months that I was out there, I was able to train a little bit more often, like, you know, maybe once every other day. But there's a lot of bigger guys that are trained there, so it's just like, I don't want to get hurt. You know, like I'm not
Oh
like
no.
my like, you know, like I can typically handle rolling with whoever when I'm in shape, but when I'm not in shape, it's just kind of like I have to pick more wisely. And then when I came back, I was like, all right, cool, I get to train like every single day, and then things got shut down again, so it's just kind of like, all right, so now we're just kind of like in this limbo where I don't know, like I think it's open for me to go, but my family is now a little bit more like, I don't know how we feel. Like before they were like okay with it, and now they're just kind of like, because they had a scare on their other side of the family. We're just like, oh yeah, someone on the in-law side got sick, and now we're all worried about getting sick. So it's like, all right, so, you know, trying to be considerate, and that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't want to endanger anybody. I don't want to endanger my family. So that's also part of it too, which is like, I know I probably could train if I wanted to be selfish, but since I know I can't, and I know I won't be, I'm like, all right, I gotta think of other people, and I'm gonna think of my family first, of course. So yeah, training.
Understandable. So
Yeah.
do you feel like a pressure to kind of train, or are you just kind of like, you know, taking as it comes, like taking a break and relaxing and just focusing on you and found other things to do?
Um, half and half. Like I really want to train because like I miss being at the gym. Like that's like my like that was my routine, you know. But I'm not looking at it from the same point of view as like having like that intense anxiety, like you know, like some along the same lines as Aaron, like having to deal with the mental health issues. And like before, again, I would feel extremely anxious if I didn't train. So right now it's like I'm in a better place with my mental health where I don't have to feel that like anxious attachment to training. But it very much still is me. It's just like, man, I really would like to train. I really would like to train. But since I know I can't have it, I'm not going to make myself feel bad about not being able to have it, you know, if that makes sense. So I'm not necessarily like, oh, I'm just going to sit back and relax and kick my feet up. Although it is nice and welcome since I've been, you know, for the past like almost 13 years, it's just been like nonstop grind until to the point where like literally I broke down from, you know, from burnout. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, well, since I can't do anything, I'm just going to kind of settle and accept that I can't do anything right now. And when I can, I'm just definitely going to embrace it when I can. But if I can't, then I'm not going to like beat myself up about it, which I think is the healthiest thing to do in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
You guys ever wonder what you would be doing right now if we weren't on lockdown? Like what plans you had? Because I planned on being in Europe right about now. And it's kind of hard. Like I planned on so many things happening. Like I planned on winning pans, winning worlds, and I planned on enjoying my summer and doing a lot of seminars and then doing super fights. But now it's kind of like everything's in limbo. So have either one of you guys thought about that?
Yeah, like I feel like all my dreams have just got stuck. All my dreams that I had for the year just got like skirt, you know, like I was like, all right, this is gonna be the first year where I'm gonna really focus more on competing at masters as opposed to competing at adult. Like all right, gonna do pans, gonna do master worlds. Like right now I would be preparing for master worlds, right? This would be like the last 2 weeks of prep before master worlds. I was like, oh, that'd be nice, get like a third title, you know. Like they just had to postpone the trip to the Philippines. So like they had like a Philippine camp that I was supposed to be part of in September. So that's
wow.
gonna be postponed. Yeah, I was like, oh no, because that was definitely on the two big things that I was looking forward to. I was like, 2020 is gonna be awesome, right? I'm gonna have this big 2-month tour throughout Asia and then go make my way down to Australia. It's all gonna be just cut, right? It would start off in the Philippines and there was supposed to be like a 1-week like jiu-jitsu camp. And so that just got postponed. And I'm like, okay. And then I was supposed to work my way through like Indonesia, Singapore, Taiwan, Japan, do the Asian Championship over in Japan, then make my way down to Australia because I've never done jiu-jitsu in the Philippines, and you know that's where my parents are from. You know that's my heritage. So I've always wanted to do jiu-jitsu in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've never been to Australia, so I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna have like a seminar weekend over in Australia, and then try to do the the Pan Packs in Melbourne, because I've never competed in Australia either, and I want to do jiu-jitsu in all the continents. I don't know how I can get to Antarctica, but we'll make that happen.
Where?
I want to go to Antarctica, but I don't know if there's jiu-jitsu in Antarctica.
I mean,
there's like
you could host an event.
like military bases.
Be the founder.
We're like, we're gonna teach jiu-jitsu to penguins, or I don't know, polar bear. I don't know what kind of wildlife did they have out there. Oh, I saw happy feet. Saw happy feet. So yeah, that all got like cut, you know, like, or even like right now in the summer, where it's just like my birthday's gonna be next week, and I'll be like, yeah, I want to go to the beach for my birthday, or I want to go outdoors, and I want to do all these things. I'm like, well, that's not gonna happen either, you know. So like, I'm just a little like, yeah, I definitely had plans too. It was just like, this is gonna be the year where I was gonna have healthy jiu-jitsu goals and lots of traveling again, and not feel burnt out and stressed about it. And nope, we're just gonna be at home. We're just gonna
at home until nobody knows when. I mean, it hit me last week because last week was I'm a teacher here in DC, so last week I finally got off. I don't know why school seems to go all year round and you only get 3 weeks off, but it's summer vacation. So like we get off work on Thursday, and then I typically fly out to Brazil on Friday, and I stay in Brazil till the Monday I have to come back to work. I fly in on Monday and then I go to work at 5 because I work at night. So like right now I'm supposed to be in Rio with Terra at the beach in Cantagalo. I have plans to go to Sao Paulo. There's like this really awesome social project in Sao Paulo, and like the guy does tattoos and he does awesome tattoos. So I have plans to go to Sao Paulo and get a tattoo. I wanted to go to Africa this year. I definitely was not planning on traveling nearly as much as Christina, but I definitely wanted to go to Africa for the first time, South Africa and Angola, and I'm not doing any of that. But I am stacking my money. Like, so normally I have to like hustle and work for Flow Grappling to get money for these plane tickets, but now I'm like securing the money for the plane tickets. So as soon as the world opens up, I'm out.
Yeah. I was having my fingers crossed and hope that like, well, maybe by September things are going to open up. And it's like, I'm looking at all of the lists and it's like Philippines, lockdown, Australia, lockdown. Like, we don't want, like literally all of them is like, we don't want Americans. Like,
for the first
I
time
can't even
ever.
go see my mom. Like last year, I went to Europe for my birthday. I went to the Netherlands, like Amsterdam, and I went to Germany, and I went to technically the last Oktoberfest, and we had all these plans to go to European Disneyland and all that stuff. But like around April, they just started canceling everything. And then I tried to get a cheap flight for like around my birthday, and then they canceled those too. My mom was supposed to fly back, and she got a really good price. Guess what? They canceled it because she got a good price, and we're still on punishment as a country. We're completely grounded.
Time out.
Oh my God, it's like, we're like that stinky kid in class. You remember that in elementary school? There was like that one stinky kid, and they're like, you can't sit with us. Like, ah!
We're the kid with pink eye.
Ah, shit.
The only saving grace is that we don't live in Florida or Texas. You know, DC is not much better. DC is a little bit better, but we're not Florida or Texas.
Well, DC, you'll catch a bullet quicker than you'll catch Corona. I don't know which was more dangerous.
Oh, no, definitely. They had like, you heard about that crazy shootout they had the other week, didn't you?
Yeah, they shut up the SWAT party.
Like, just, it was wild. They have shootings all the time. This was just a crazy shooting. It looked like people were running everywhere. I know somebody was on IG and he was on his story during the shootout rolling a joint. Like, I ain't running. I don't know why all these people are running. Like, that's one of my former
students. Tuesday. This is Tuesday. This is normal.
It's like, I don't run from bullets. I was like, I mean, maybe at least not be on your phone, maybe not be on IG like at the time, but you know, that's this generation. It doesn't happen unless it was on your story for 24 hours. Like,
yeah, everybody's putting up their phones now. I mean, like, well, you know what? You have so many people acting like crazy these days. It's like, you know, you see all the videos of all the Karens and all like the Kevins and it's just like, I feel like in my area, that's really like the most I have to worry about is like Karens, really. And I really wish I would. I wish a Karen would. Like, if there was ever gonna be a day, like, I don't look for confrontation. I don't look for fights. I'm not that kind of person. But you know, you see these kind of videos, and you're just like, oh, if a person were going to be racist towards Asians, please let it be me. Please let it be me, because I have some pent-up aggression that needs to come out, and now is the time.
Too. Nobody want to assume it.
No,
They'll never
I'm
see
smiling
it
all the time. They'll never will. Oh no, yeah. Like, Angry Christina is a different person. This is apparently been said. Like, Angry Christina rarely ever comes out. Angry Christina almost doesn't exist, but she's still there. And if she's ever given the opportunity, she's not a pleasant person.
You definitely never see it, because even in competition, you're always dancing and happy beforehand. Like,
oh yeah, I'm in my own little world. I'm just kind of like, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna, like, you know, and I don't ever have like those thoughts in my head, like, I'm gonna murder this person, like, nothing like that. But like, I'm gonna come in strong, aggressive, blah, 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 you know, me, my time. But in my head, it's like some like poppy, girly, like K-pop, you know, like just like, yeah, I love you, you do, you know, with all the choreography. Like, that's what's playing in my headphones, and I'm just dancing around. But in my head, I'm like, my time, I'm gonna get it today. Today's my day, you know, like that whole mindset. But then I look at the pictures and I'm like, oh my God, I look mean as fuck. I'm like, but I'm not this mean person, I swear. I don't know why my face looks like that in the bullpen, but I guess it's only in the bullpen.
hey,
So let's go back a little bit. What is your first martial arts memory? Now, it can be a class that you took when you were younger, or maybe a movie that you saw that got you hooked, but what is your first martial arts memory?
Oh my God, first martial arts memory ever. Okay, so I have to think that that's gonna have to go back to like way when I was a kid, like watching like Power Rangers, like my like Ninja Turtles, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then like me trying to recreate that at home, and like I'd be like at like church or something like that, right? And like my mom would always try to make me wear like these girly dresses, and I would always detest having to wear them, but then I would always be like, look at me doing these kicks, and I would like kick my leg up all over the place, and my mom would just be like, so like, Chris, you're not supposed to do that thing, you're not supposed to do that, because like my underwear would be all over the out, like you're like a little 5-year-old Christina, like trying to fight everybody, like because I saw something on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that just was not socially acceptable. I mean, like I didn't know what I was doing then, so I didn't like really get to do any martial arts until I was 20, and like that was like when I first started doing Muay Thai, and I had to like convince my mom that I needed it because apparently like I wasn't completely afraid for my life, but there were some stupid kids at the gas station, and they were just looking for trouble. I was like, I really don't know how to defend myself. So like, if I want to think first martial arts memory, that's gonna be like me wanting to do martial arts but playing pretend. But like actually getting to do martial arts was probably the first time I ever got to try a class, and that was when I was in college, and my English teacher brought in her cousin who taught Krav Maga, because like I picked up her keychain. I was like, huh, what is this for, stabbing people? And she's like, yeah, actually. I'm like, well, what the hell? I'm like, what? And she's like, it's like, no, my cousin teaches Krav Maga. This is one of the weapons that you can have on your keychain that you can use for like multiple attackers. I'm like, oh. And you know, like, and I wouldn't have thought that she did anything like that, because she was like this, like she was younger, but like she looked like just super feminine, super like, you know, like well put together, like super dainty, you know, English teacher. So I was like, I didn't even like think about it. So she brought her cousin in to teach a class to us, and then that was like my first time getting to hit like pads. I was like, oh my God, this is so much fun, I want to keep hitting things. Like, and then it was just like a series of events that like got me to like get the courage to actually ask my mom, like, hey, can I actually take like kickboxing lessons? But I had to convince her it was for self-defense, so that she would actually let me do it. And then from there on, that's where I found jiu-jitsu, and here I am like 14 years later. So
why didn't she want you to do it?
it's like a cultural thing. Like ever since I could grow up, ever since I could remember, it was always like women are supposed to be dainty, they're supposed to be quiet, you're supposed to sit proper, you know, you're just supposed to sit and look pretty, and you're supposed to act ladylike. And so doing martial arts or being rough was just not acceptable. Like, and I had all guy cousins, so I was wrestling with them all the time. Like I was the kid that I always got in trouble because I was just too rough. Like I was just too physical. I like my hands would always find themselves to another person, and then someone would get hurt and I would get in trouble. And it's just like, wow, like, so I thought there was something wrong with me. There probably was, but there really wasn't. You know, like I was just a physical kid. But yeah, just like that's just not how my mom was raised. My mom was raised like she was one of 9 kids, and out of those 9 kids, she was only one of 2 daughters. So like it was just really strict for her, you know. And so because she had to act a certain way, of course, then she raised me to act a certain way, and that just did not fly over that well. So yeah, there's a lot of crying when I told her about my first like my first like Muay Thai smoker, you know, like my first like Muay Thai fight. And I was telling her like, yeah, I'm gonna I told you it was for self-defense. It wasn't for self-defense. I actually want to fight. And she's like, she cried. She's like, oh my God, Ting, I don't understand. We raised you to be such a good girl. I'm like, I am a good girl. We raised you to be a smart girl. I'm like, I am a smart girl. I don't understand where this is coming from. Like, I don't understand. Why do you need to fight? I don't understand. You know, you're a good girl. You're a good girl. You don't need to fight. I'm like, I know I don't need to, but I want to. Like, yeah, it was rough for her. She's like, it was rough. She like, came to my first fight. She's like, oh, I had to go see the doctor. I had heart palpitations. Almost had a heart attack. I had high blood pressure. I cannot handle this anymore. I cannot handle. I'm like, all right. But she came to my first jiu-jitsu fight and she didn't understand what was going on, so then that was fine. She just was very, very confused.
Yeah, the
She was
punching
like,
is a little hard on parents.
yeah, the punching and the kicking she couldn't handle, but the jiu-jitsu was fine because she just didn't understand it. Like she came to, like, the first time that she got to watch me compete, she was sitting with my teammates and they're like reiterating what she was saying. She's like, what is going on? Why is she on the ground? Is that bad? I'm like, no, being on the ground is good. Like, but she's on her back. Like, no, that's called guard. That's fine. And then like I think I submitted the girl like really quick, and she's like, oh, what is happening? Why is her arm raised? She won. But they're so quick. What? I don't understand. Like, she was like, she didn't understand it. So like, well, she knows I'm not getting punched or kicked, so I guess that's all that matters.
Yeah. Do you think that's a problem that a lot of girls have? Like, have you encountered that with any of your maybe female students that have told you they've had like some problems in their homes with that?
I find that it's more prevalent with like women in the Asian community. I find that's like I'm pretty sure that it happens to a lot of women. You know, like a lot of women, like when they first tell their families that they want to do jujitsu or they want to do any sort of martial arts. But predominantly, like anytime that I've talked to anybody, you know, like of Asian descent, like they've all had this very, very similar stories, especially Filipino, because we all grew up with the same mindset, right? You know, like our mothers are all the same, and their mothers also grew up with like their grandmothers and saw that same mindset. So, which is really funny to think, because it's like, if you really think about like the history of the Filipino people, like we were people of rebellion. Like we we've been colonized for so many centuries, and like it's just literally like generations upon generations of like fighting the system. Like if it wasn't the colonists from Spain, then we were fighting like the Japanese, or we were fighting like you know, like the US, and like just rebelling for our independence. And somewhere along the way we got our independence, and we're like, cool, we don't need to fight anymore. And maybe that's what happened, I don't know. Or maybe some sort of the colonist mindset got settled in with my mom, and her grandparents are like, well, if you don't fight, then they'll treat us properly. I'm like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. um, so but yeah, it's definitely really common with like in like Asian cultures, where it's just like women are supposed to be kind of like submissive and demure and delicate, and you're kind of supposed to look a certain way and like, here, marry my daughter. I don't know, I it seems very archaic to me. So I'm glad I get to be part of like this generation of like of Asian women who are kind of like more forward and like physically forward, where it's like, okay, well, we're definitely not going to be those stereotypes, and we're never going to break from the mold of what our mothers told us that we had to be.
Can you talk a little bit about that transition from striking to jiu-jitsu? What was your motivation? How did you like it compared to striking?
Because your best friend is
Yeah.
making the opposite transition.
Yeah. Oh my God, Erin loves hitting things. Oh my God, she's just like, this is so much fun. Like that same feeling, right? Like that
Yep.
first class, like, oh my God, I'm hitting things. I'm gonna keep doing this.
Novelty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, so I didn't know what jujitsu was ever. Like, and when I started doing Muay Thai, it was in Cesar Gracie's academy, you know? So like I walked in for the first time, and there, you know, like there's like Vinny Magales was like teaching a class, you know, and they're like, oh, you want to check out jujitsu? I'm like, I don't know what that is. like, well, you can sit around and watch if you'd like. And I'm like, sure. Like, and I didn't get it. I was just like, they're just kind of rolling on the ground, I guess. I don't know. And like, I just want to know about Muay Thai. And it's like the instructor wasn't even there that day. So all I really knew is that I wanted to punch and kick things. That's all I knew. That's all I knew I wanted to do. And so when I finally started getting to do it, I was like, all right, this is awesome. You're like, I'm finally getting like punch and kick things and punch and kick people. Like, I'm not a violent person, I swear, but you know, there's just that part. My Muay Thai instructor tried teaching me some jujitsu right at the beginning, and I was like, I don't think this jujitsu thing is for me. You know, it was like no-gi. He tried showing me like a triangle, an arm bar, like just basic stuff, and then he tried having me roll with like one of the other girls that was in class, and she had like a wrestling background, and she was bigger than me, and like, so you told me that all I need is like technique and skill, but I don't see how that works here, because this girl is just smashing on me. I don't think this jiu-jitsu stuff is for me. Like, I was really convinced that jiu-jitsu wasn't for me. It took me a year before I tried doing jiu-jitsu again. And then my friend let me borrow his gi top. So I did like the sambo look. I had like this oversized gi top, and I had like some like just like some like board shorts on. And I borrowed a white belt that was like, I don't know, that belt that's probably been there for like years. Who knows who it's been passed through? Probably had SARS on it. I don't know. Like, and I did the class. I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. This is so much fun. And then I came to the realization that I actually really didn't like getting punched or kicked in the face or the head. I didn't like being punched or kicked at all, actually. Like, I liked punching and kicking, but I didn't like getting hit. And so once jiu-jitsu like really, really came in, I was like, oh my God, this is all I want to do now. And like, I would less and less I would be in Muay Thai, and more like making like time to do jiu-jitsu. And then before I knew it, I just wasn't doing Muay Thai anymore. I was just only doing jiu-jitsu. And then around the time that I fully committed to doing jiu-jitsu, that's when Caesar brought in Caio to be the head instructor for jiu-jitsu over at his academy. So I was actually one of his first students when he first came to the US. And then yeah, like, it was like when he was the head instructor, I was like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna sign up for jiu-jitsu, because this is really all I want to do now. Like, I don't really want to like fight anymore. Like, I want to fight, but I don't want to like, I just didn't handle like getting hit. There was like a bunch of other stuff going on there too. So I'm a bit of a softie. I'm not as tough as I say I am, or as I think I am. But when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I feel like I can be as tough as I want, and it's fine for as long as I'm not getting hit. I'm not getting brain damage. My ego can't handle it. I can be very honest.
Brain damage bad.
Yeah. See, smart girls, all that college education is gonna go out the door if I keep getting hit in the head, right? So I have to like give my mom some return on her investment of sending me to college.
Very much so.
So you said that you made the transition to taking it seriously and full time at the lower belt level.
Yeah, like, well, as far as like, I only wanted to do, I didn't want to split my focus to anything else. So like at white belt, once I started doing it more, I was like, man, I really want to do this more often. I was still in vet tech school, so I was still doing that. I was still also working, so it's not like I could do it full time, but like, I knew I wanted to compete, and I knew I wanted to put more time like into competing as much as often as I could. So, but I still did everything else. Like, so I was in vet tech school. I had my internships that I had to do. I had also a part-time job that I was also doing, working at the county animal shelter on the medical staff. Plus also making time to go train, 5 to 6 days a week, so I just kind of had it in my head that I have to do all these things, because I can't do jiu-jitsu if I'm not doing well in school, and if I'm not pursuing this career that my parents, I felt that I had to do to make my parents happy, so I had to make everything work. After I graduated and then I got my license, it just so happened that I got into a long distance relationship, and I had to move to Arizona. And once I got to Arizona, I didn't intend on doing jiu-jitsu full time. Like, I really was trying to find work, but I was just having a very hard time finding work as an RVT in Arizona. And then more and more, I just saw that I found myself helping out with, with my ex-fiance, but I was helping out with his business. So I was helping him run the gym, run his program, helping him run his tournaments. So more and more, I just found that like, it was just more beneficial for me to actually work with him and his business, as opposed to finding my own job, which I found like, like, I have to have my own job because I have to have my own money to pay, right? But it's like, no, this is just more beneficial if you just help with the gym and help with the school. I'm like, all right, so that's what I did. And so little before I knew it, jiu-jitsu just became my full-time job, without really my intention of that happening. Like, I had no intention of making jiu-jitsu my full-time job at the lower belt. But once it slowly transitioned into that, it was kind of like, well, now I don't know how else to live my life. By the time that I moved back to California, after being in Arizona for 4.5 years, I was like, I really don't know how to live my life any other way than to just live this jiu-jitsu lifestyle, where I teach and I train and I compete. And then since I was a brown belt at that time, I was like, all right, well, I can referee now. I can teach more seminars. I can teach more private lessons. I can teach women's classes. And that's pretty much what I did. It was just like this mad hustle of just always having to like try to make money with jiu-jitsu. And it was not easy. It was like, you know, picking up scraps. Like there was like my schedule when I first came back to California, I was just like, all right, like I'm on my own. I really have to like make my bills. I pay my bills on my own, because like no one's gonna pay my bills for me. There'd be like days where like I was teaching in the morning for like a youth outreach program, kind of like we would teach jiu-jitsu to at-risk youth within different neighborhoods, like in Richmond or San Pablo area, so like Oakland area, where these kids are at risk for, you know, gangs, drugs, violence. And they had the option of either learning jujitsu or doing regular PE classes. And so some of them opted to do jujitsu. So that's where they put in the instructors to do these programs. They could get sponsorships, so they could get free gis. If any of them were really interested in doing it, we could get them opportunities to compete, or even set up opportunities for them to compete locally, because some of them would never even leave their city, let alone cross a bridge and go to San Francisco, or even go to any other part, like leaving Richmond. Like they would never leave their neighborhood. So it was kind of cool being part of that. So I would do that. Then I would like it was just so much commuting, like drive an hour to get there, drive another hour to go to San Jose, do everything and train over there, like with like barely any sleep, do all that stuff. Then I'm going to drive to somewhere else and teach jujitsu somewhere else, and then do it again the next day. So it was this crazy hustle where I was just always in my car or sleeping in my car, or, you know, and, but all just because like, I just wanted to make it work. But it was rough. It really was rough, but I mean, I'm alive still, so it works. But people got like, I don't think people really realize how much you have to hustle to make it work, especially when you're not like a black belt and you don't even have any titles yet, you know, like just a brown belt. I mean, I had titles, but it's still hard. It's still really hard.
Do you think it was harder being a woman as well?
In some cases, yes. Like I feel like it was really easy for people to kind of like question my credibility, you know. And also what's difficult too is like, depending on the area that you do seminars or that you do, you know, you get your refereeing opportunities. Like I didn't get too much problems here on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, man, I would have people like giving me problems all the time, like, hey, I don't know if you're new at this, I don't know, like if you're just like kind of people talking down to me a lot. I'm like, what, like why, you know? But it makes sense, since people don't really know me on the East Coast as well as they know me on the West Coast, I'm assuming. I don't know, but definitely like I've gotten my fair share of harassment at tournaments from like, you know, like like veteran black belts, you know, like Brazilian black belts, where it's just kind of like, man, they're like I speak a little bit of Portuguese. I can understand what you're saying. I understand that you're also not saying very, very nice things.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're saying. And then you have like the people who are just really bold and they'll just straight up just say really nasty things to your face. And you're like, wow, you're completely in the wrong, but okay, you do you, you know? But other than like bad treatment, I feel like in some cases being a female helps, because there's a very specific niche that like I feel like women can always like can serve to, right? Like women's jiu-jitsu is like a very, very specific thing. And it's definitely more common now, but before it was just kind of like, wow, it's a rarity to see like a high level female black belt, right? And so I feel like that was a really big draw for a lot of people, like, oh, like you don't ever get to see this, like, you know, it'd be kind of cool where people will book me for like, oh, we want to have a 2-day seminar, one for women's only and one co-ed. And then and in both cases you're meeting men and women who are just like, wow, I've never met a black belt female before. And like, so there definitely is some value to it. I wouldn't say it's definitely affected me like professionally being a woman, but as far as how I've been treated, yes, definitely there has been some bad treatment. And I feel like that has only happened because I was female, nothing to do, but that's necessarily affected my ability to get work. At least I feel like that.
What's your opinion on women's representation in the sport? What do you think can be done to improve it?
well, I'm gonna say that we've made some leaps and bounds. Like if I think about back in the day where, you know, at no-gi tournaments they had to put blue and purple belts together and brown and black belts together, or brown and black belts were together in the gi divisions, or they didn't even have like all the different weight divisions. Like we've come a long way. Like when I was a white belt, I think I only fought at my actual weight division once. I always either had to fight guys or I had to fight women who were like, 30, 40 pounds bigger than me, but we were all still in one weight class. Like there's only 3 weight divisions, you know? And I feel like they're starting to make better improvements as far as like equal pay, which is really awesome. You know, like Brazilian Nationals, was it last year or is it 2 years ago? Where they started making it equal pay, like whatever they paid the men, they were also paying the women. So I was like, okay, that's fair, that's awesome. I would like to see different things like an ADCC. I would like for them to add different weight divisions. I think we definitely have way more women competitors and way more women athletes now as opposed to when ADCC first came out. So you can definitely have more than just 2 weight divisions. I'm not even saying that because I want to do it, but it's like there are women out there who deserve to have that opportunity to compete on a level playing field. Like I feel like you have like all these weight divisions for the guys. Like I feel like you could definitely have at the very least 2 more weight divisions for the women at the very least, you know. And as far as like representation, like man, like yeah, like the brackets now are getting super deep. Like I've always felt like at the women's division, like it didn't matter like which division you went to, there was someone there. Like you couldn't run anywhere, you know. Like our divisions would be smaller, but everyone who was in that division was like, okay, well, there's a European champ there, there's a Pan Am champ there, there's a world champ there. Like everybody's won something, like everybody's somebody in these divisions. But now like they're getting flushed out, so like they're getting fuller, which is also really cool. But same thing, like they stay in the guys divisions. Like there's nowhere where you can run. Like if you cut weight or if you gain weight, like doesn't matter if you're going to go up in division or down division, there's somebody there. Like you can't run anywhere. Like maybe like your chances will be a little bit better as far as like how stacked it is, but you're still going to be going against like these monsters. Doesn't matter which division. And I feel like that's slowly becoming the same thing with women's division. So it's really nice to see that women's divisions are like ultra competitive now, where I feel like before, especially when I was a lower belt, you'd look at some of the divisions and you could kind of tell who was going to win already, you know, because it's the same people winning over and over again. But even if you take like the light feather division, for example, like the crown, right, or the title has passed hands like pretty much every single year. I don't think they've had like a multiple like world champion like 2 times in a row in the past few years, at the like since 2016. I don't think like it's just been someone different every single time, which is really awesome to see. Like I think outside of like Bia Mosquito, who like just wins everything, she's like the GOAT, you know. But yeah, I definitely like where it's going, but there's still a lot more work that can be done, you know. Like again, just more representation, especially these big pro shows like Copa Podio or even like what's like Kumite and stuff like that. Like there's all these big pro shows that are starting to come out. Be nice to see more women on the card and see more representation. Like I feel like we're seeing the same women, which is really awesome because all women deserve opportunity. But it would be cool if they could get more than just one female fight on that card. You know, like you can definitely have like 2 or 3 or even 4. You know, if you're gonna have like 10 or 12 male fights, I think you can have at least like 2 or 3 female fights, not just like that one. But that's just my opinion on it. You know, there's a lot of us now, and there's a big pot to pull from.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the brackets and things like that, because you've done a ton of traveling and competing all over the place. And I know I see a lot of times, and maybe it might just be like local IBJJF tournaments recently, where a lot of the girls won't have anybody in their bracket. So it's like purple belts and everything as well. So how does it feel like when you're training and you're cutting weight and you're traveling and you're putting all this work and you do show up and there aren't a lot of brackets, or it's not a lot of competition, or there's always those critiques from men like, oh, you got gold but you only had 2 fights and we have to fight 5 or 6 times. Like how is that coming up and now?
Oh man. So like typically when it's a tournament where you have to like cut weight and stuff like that, it's like that's a bigger tournament. So most likely you're gonna have somebody, but even still, it's still very frustrating, you know? And even more frustrating to have somebody, well, you only had 2 fights to get that gold medal. I was like, yeah, but like, did you think about who I had to fight to get to those gold medals? Like I mentioned before, like the women I fought, like, okay, well, that's a European champion right there. There's a Pan Am champion over there. There's like, everybody's won something. So it's not like you're fighting scrubs, you know? And granted, it's like, it's not our fault that our brackets are smaller, like definitely the opens are really hard, right? Opens, like you're lucky if you get a match. And if you do get a match, you're definitely always gonna have to either go up in weight or down in weight or something. More often going up in weight, or like you're just fighting in the open class, which I've definitely had to do that. Definitely had to do that a few times. Or like I went to Paris, right? I did the Paris Open, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna sign up for like there's no one there in featherweight, but there's someone in lightweight, so I'm just gonna move up to lightweight. And then I guess that girl like didn't want to fight lightweight, so she moved up to middleweight. I was like, frick it, no, I'm gonna. So I had to chase her. So I had to chase her so I could fight her at middleweight, and then just so they could have these like matches. So sometimes that does happen. It's like frustrating. Like, man, like I'm gonna travel all this way. I want to fight somebody. Um, I'd say for the lower belts, just be patient. Like, take your fights wherever you can. Like, if you can't fight at your actual weight division, which does suck, just always be open to fighting up in weight, because that is the reality for women. And even I would say that's also the reality of some of the guys in like the smaller weight divisions, like the rooster and light featherweights. Like sometimes they don't have anybody to fight, so it's just kind of like well, just get used to the idea of having to fight up in weight if there's nobody at your actual weight division. Or be willing to move around if you're flexible to move around in your age if you can. Like I'm Master 1. Technically, by next year, I'll qualify for Master 2, which is insane to me to think of that. But I'll still be competing at adult, and Master 1 whenever I feel like it. And that means like, well, there's no one to fight at Master 1. That means I'm gonna have to go down to adult if I really want to fight, But yeah, I mean, there is a frustration, and if you can get your money back, or if you can get the stuff back like beforehand, do so. But yeah, it's a bummer, especially if you're planning to travel somewhere, and you have no one to fight. Like it's probably like one of the biggest frustrations that I can think of, because like you put the time and the effort, and you want to be able to have that time, but at the same time you should also be willing to be flexible, especially if you know that those opportunities are very hard to come by. Take the opportunities where you can. It's not necessary for everybody, but I feel like if you're really committed to fighting or competing, then it's okay just to be a little bit flexible, just to have that payback, or yeah, the payback of the work that you put in.
All right, another random question, because we get this all the time with the lower belts. I don't know how it is for you guys black belts, but do you take a fight at a higher weight class, or do you take the default medal and the ranking? Like, because I know you guys need points to get to Worlds. I don't know if that matters. I can go to Worlds with all the default medals or up fights, So which do you do?
Depends on the situation. So if it's I know I can't give you like a straight up answer.
But I know it's hard. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
I want opinions from both of you, because like my friend group, we talk about this all the time.
I've done both. I've definitely gone down in weight to get the default medal, but knowing very well that I wanted to do the absolute, and because maybe I didn't have anybody to fight. Like there's really nobody close enough for me to fight. Like if it's like one weight division up, then I can definitely do it. But if it's like there's like me who is like either light feather or feather, and the only other person I can fight is like middle heavy or heavy, which is like, all right, well, I'll just fight you, in the open class. I'll get my gold for, especially if it's a small like international open, right, local. Like I'll just get my default gold, whatever. But then I'm also still gonna do the open class, But there's that case like where I went to Paris. And I'm like, well, I don't want to just like a default gold. I want as many matches as possible because I'm going all the way to Paris, So yeah, I moved my weight up all the way to middleweight. So I competed at middleweight, and I also did the open class. So Like they're like definitely both are very valid, just depending on what the situation is, right? Like I feel like don't do the default medal if you don't have any intention of doing the open class, you know. But if there's an opportunity for you to go up because you don't want to do the open class, then move up, you know. And if you're traveling, yeah, move to wherever you can so you can get those matches. Don't just travel to another country or travel somewhere else and don't have any fights, because that's lame. That's lame. Don't just pay for the medal. That's like you're gonna pay like $150 for something that costs like $5. Come on now.
I think some people see it as the medal, the ranking, the Instagram picture, and the sponsorship. Albeit that's like definitely the social media clout way, but I think that there is a large group of people that do that kind of thing. So what do you think?
But the ranking doesn't even matter that much for the lower belts, does it?
That to some people. Try it. Try to tell that to a blue belt that thinks they can get a show your role sponsorship that will pay them like $500 a month or something like that if they're number one. Try to tell that. Like,
man,
you look like you've had no experience with this.
That's why I wanted to ask you. And you'd be like, look what she said, because you don't believe me. Now look what Tim said. Like,
yeah, don't mean anything. That's why I always say fuck the rankings. I go where the smoke is. You know, the rankings don't mean anything in black belt because they're gonna put you in the bracket. Like they have a bracket meeting, and in that meeting, all the black belts argue about who's going to be seated 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then everyone else.
I thought they changed that somehow.
They did. They changed it now. Oh my God, they don't have meetings anymore. Caio was so pissed about it. He was so pissed. Yeah, he's just like, no, like they have. But here's the thing though. So like they have it like it's purely numbers now. But it's kind of like, it doesn't matter. So people can't even fight for like, oh, well, I won this one and that one. Like, no, like, here's the numbers. They have like the actual numbers. So like different tournaments, like have different amount of points, right? And so like, if you look at like the brackets now, they'll even, for the black belts, they'll show you at the bottom of the bracket, like how it got seeded. They'll show you like who has like the most amount of like actual ranking points, and then who has like the most Grand Slam points. So the Grand Slam points are the ones that mean more than the actual ranking points. So if you got a whole bunch of like default gold medals from doing, or like, you know, from doing a bunch of international opens, your ranking number might be higher, but your Grand Slam ranking is going to be lower if you didn't do any of the Grand Slams. So like the person who won or placed at Pans or at Europeans or Brasileiros or anything like that, they're immediately going to get seated higher than the person who got like, who has a higher ranking number, but they only did international opens. So there definitely is a system now that Caio mentioned to me, because like sometimes you look at it like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, but then you look at like, oh, well, that person did Europeans and that one did Pans, and then this one just has a higher number, but they didn't do any of those tournaments. So the person who did Europeans and Pans and has medals in that tournament is going to get ranked higher. And then they also, of course, give obvious preference, like how many times is this person the current world champion? Have they won worlds within like the previous year or whatever? And these are all these are all considerations. So you can actually literally look at the breakdown now as to how they seed it. So they don't have those meetings anymore. Like they got rid of them so that people can stop fighting and being all political about it.
Yeah, the jiu-jitsu nerds beat out the jiu-jitsu playboys.
Yeah. Oh my Lord. Because yeah, I remember Caio being kind of pissed, but at the same time kind of being happy. Like he's like, well, it's out of my hands. I can't do anything for you anymore. You got to do it on your own. But at the same time, just kind of like what the heck? No, this doesn't make any sense. You know, like how are you gonna have this person here, this division? You know, but people are always gonna complain. But I feel like this wave works a lot better. But like, yeah. It's definitely sometimes you feel like, well, that's a little questionable, but because you feel like there's certain matchups now that like you feel like you would want to see happen, and now they're not going to happen if they don't line up with the numbers.
Wow, I guess that's kind of good, because then like it's good for the competitors, because you don't want to get put on the same bracket as somebody that's really good just because they wanted you over there. So it's about math simply. Man, unless I'm hard on points, like when I first came back to training full time, I had to get points. So If there was a winner in my division, I was impressed about chasing people. I needed those points, and then I would do the open. So the answer, the rankings really, if I'm chasing that money at the end, whoever's ranked number one gets all that money, I'll do that too. But yeah, I chase the matches. I want to chase the matches.
Yeah. I would like, yeah, if I'm traveling, I chase the matches for sure. If it's like local and I know I need the points, then I'll just settle. But that's just because like I'm so small. I'm so small. I don't want to fight big monsters and just get hurt. Well, I could do it twice because I've also done that too. But sometimes it's hard because if I have to referee, they have it now too, or they're a little stricter where they won't let you do both weight class and absolute. It's like you either do one or the other. Well, that's kind of lame. So it's just like, well, if I can only do one, then I'll just make sure I do if I can't fight at my weight division, then I'll just make sure I do the absolute. Because if you want to try and get higher ranking points, and you want to do that by winning in the absolute, as opposed to winning your weight division, right? The absolute is where you actually get like a big amount of points, especially if you are looking, you need better ranking. But yeah, like, essentially doing the international opens and then just getting a default gold is just good enough so that you can have the points to qualify to compete, but it doesn't necessarily do anything for your positioning when they bracket, so like if you really want to get good positioning and bracketing, then you have to do like the bigger weighted tournaments, particularly the Grand Slam tournaments. Otherwise, like you're just getting the points just so that you can even just enter the tournament, right? I don't know how much it is is it like 50 points or something like that for the guys? I know sometimes it's harder for the guys than it is for the girls, in this sense, for getting the ranking points.
It's getting more strict now. It's getting way more strict. I think they even weight it by recency. So if you won something 3 years ago, it's not as weighted as much as this year.
Yeah, that's what they do. They only count like the 3 years or whatever, like the past 3 years are the only thing that counts. So anything beyond that, it's just like, well, didn't happen. They don't count it too. Like if you won at lightweight, but then like you won worlds at lightweight, but then you decide to do featherweight, you're winning at that belt level or at that weight division is not gonna play into your points, into how you're ranked in in the lower weight division, which is like that's crazy as well. It's like, whoa. So just because like a person won worlds at lightweight division, they can't just be inserted into featherweight division and already have like that big like seeding bias where like, oh well, they won worlds at lightweight, like, well, does it matter because that's a different weight division. So they do count that as well too with the Grand Slam points. It's like, okay, did they win it at their weight division or they did do it at a different weight, because they consider that as well, that was also like an eye-opener there. It's like, whoa, because I like when I saw that like Tammy Musumeci, when she was still when her and Mikey were still CTA, they had like the seeding, I was like, well, she definitely should be seated higher because she's won worlds before. And they're like, oh, it doesn't count because it was a different weight division, and she's doing a different weight division now as where she won before. I'm like, whoa, that's insane. I didn't realize that, so. But apparently the system works. I think the system works way better. It definitely, again, takes out the politics, and it takes out the people like fighting, to like for their athletes to get proper representation, or like, like I would imagine like Tim, you would probably get some really fucked up like matchups or get really messed up seating in the past just because of your team, right? All the Brazilians are like, fuck the Americans. Fuck you guys.
When you're pans in the open, I had no smaller than super heavyweight. I made it all the way to the semis, and then I had to fight Bernardo Faria and the winner in the semifinals, right? And then if I made it to the finals of the Open, I would have had to fight the winner of Lowe and Andre Galvao. So I wouldn't have fought anyone smaller than 208 pounds.
God damn. That's so messed up. They really do the guys dirty. I'd say like at least for like with the girls there's some civility about it, but the guys, it's cutthroat. Like they're like, I don't know what's going on in those like I would hear stories about those meetings of like just people just being angry. And I'm like, man, and then there's some people just like, I'm just in my corner, I'm just gonna try and get my one guy the one thing, and then I want to be out of here. I don't want to be here.
We had a,
You know, I don't know what they're like juicing. I don't know what's going on. Like, you know, there's probably some roid rage in there, and freaking just like
biggest
dude, like,
competition of the year, man. The biggest.
Yeah, dude.
There's got to
I'm
be.
surprised. I'm surprised nobody.
With a lot of steroids involved, you know.
Yeah, dude. There's someone has to be in, like, if someone could go back, you know, with like, you know, with the prominence of having everything on a phone, just be like world star, but like, you know, at like the jiu-jitsu like black belt like seating meetings. Oh my god.
Oh,
Fucking
man.
insane. I'm pretty sure a chair has been thrown. I'm pretty sure like people have been threatened to fight. People like, hold me back, like freaking like Galval jumping over like the fence or some shit. Like, you know, that's good. I'm pretty sure that has happened. I'm pretty sure. You know, obviously I've never been there, but
yeah, no. The only reason I know about it is because Master Lloyd and Master Donnie, like, I was asking, like, oh, when y'all going to Worlds? And they're like, nah, we need to try to get out there early for this meeting. And da-da-da-da. I was like, what meeting? They're like, the bracketing meeting. We all got to get out there. And the coach, I was like, there's a meeting before Worlds? Like, I didn't even know it existed. I was like, what? I was like, that just didn't even sound right. I was like, y'all got a secret meeting before it starts?
If you weren't sure about jiu-jitsu being a cult before, we are now sure that jiu-jitsu is a cult.
I was like, hey, I'm fine with it. They just need to pay us more.
Yeah.
What are some tips for men when they're training with women? And what are some of your guys' pet peeves?
Oh, Lord. Well, I'd say like on the top of my list of pet peeves is like when I go with like a lower belt like guy, and it's like I'm rolling with him and clearly I'm just doing whatever the hell I want to do. And then they'll say stuff along the way like, oh man, good job. Wow, good job. Like, why are you telling me good job? Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
You're talking about like no gi, no belt on, or like in your gi with the black belt on, they say that to you?
In the gi with my belt on, rolling with it, like, you know, like.
You smoke
like
a lot of weed in your gym or something? Or
it's California. I mean, it's not.
What? That's like.
Yeah, it happens. It happens, like, and it happens with like blue and purple belts. Well, like, I'll be rolling with them, and it's like, and they'll say stuff like, good job, like, oh man, yeah, good job. I'm like, what are you telling me good job for? Like, I know what I'm doing. Wait, this is infuriating. Like, just shut up, you know? But as far as like bigger guys going with like women who are like smaller than them, or they know that they're like not as strong, like, go with a female, especially if you know that you're bigger, stronger, and if you know that you have, like, you know, you've been training longer than them, like, treat them the same way that you would go with like a smaller guy who also, you know, like, you wouldn't, in my head, unless you're an asshole, you wouldn't wreck like a smaller guy just for the sake of, like, because you know you can beat up on them. Like, you don't want to be a bully, you know? So like, I feel like it should be like, it sounds easy to say like, don't be an asshole or don't be a dick, but like, don't be a dick, you know? Like, if you feel like you have to absolutely muscle, like, even if the girl does outrank you or has better technique, like, if you feel like you have to go balls to the wall on her in order to, and you still can't do anything against her, like, you're using all of the strength in your body and you still can't do anything to like combat her technique, and she's still doing whatever she wants you, but you're just being unnecessarily rough, chances are your jiu-jitsu just needs to get better, you know? Like, so guys, when you're going with girls, or guys when you're going with guys who are smaller than you, like, just focus on the technique. Like, it's not that hard. There have been times where Caio has told some of the guys who are lower belt but bigger than me, and I'm doing whatever I want with it, I'm not like going super hard, I'm just using my technique. He has told them, like, use your strength with her, use your strength, but he will only say that to someone who he knows that they can do it in a respectful kind of way, like, not in a spazzy, they're going to hurt me kind of way. So like, there's a time and place for it. Obviously there's a time and place to use strength, because like, even Caio, king of technique conquers all, will tell sometimes lower belt guys, like, hey, use a little bit of your strength because you have to compensate for like the technique gap. Like, it's like, don't, like, essentially saying, like, don't just lay over and die, don't just give up, at least try, you know? If trying means using a little bit of strength, okay, but like, but don't be a dick. Like, don't do things that like that you would like. If you wouldn't do it to someone who is your size or bigger, then don't do it to someone who's smaller than you, you know? Like I feel like it shouldn't be that hard. Also, don't be creepy. Don't be that guy. Don't be a creepy guy. Stay away, creepers. Creepers are bad.
What do you define as a creepy guy?
You gotta be specific, because some guys think.
Oh my god!
This is a message to creepy guys. If we're putting up our hair or looking for water randomly in between rounds, you're probably that creepy guy we're not trying to roll with. Wait for us to come up to you.
Yeah, like, you know, there's that. It's just like, I don't know, like it's a like, maybe like it's a little different now because like I'm a black belt, so I won't say like I don't experience as many creepers as there were before, but like don't like I don't know, like don't make comments about our bodies like when we're training. Like don't like like that's not like absolutely necessary. Or like or don't like the one thing I don't like is like, okay, you don't ever talk to me in person at the gym, but you only try to talk to me online. And I'm like, that's weird. That's really weird. You know, like you're at the gym all the time and you have every opportunity to talk to me in person, but you never talk to me in person, but you're always going to try and send me messages like through Instagram or whatever. And I'm like, dude, that's not cool. Like, you know, like why, or like if you have a conversation on Instagram, then you're going to act like you don't know me in person. So that's like, that's weird. That's creepy, right? Like why like why would you do that? Or like I'll do have like sometimes like white belt visitor guys who come in and like I don't know, I had like one white belt guy who had the balls to try to ask me out on a date. I was like, no. They're like, whoa, but you're Filipino and I'm Filipino. I'm like, that's not how it works. like like don't do that ever. Don't do that. Like but other than that, it's just like, dude, just be like respectful. Like obviously, like I had this conversation on a different podcast with like on the Rear Naked radio podcast with like Drew and Jamie Kilstein. And it's just kind of like, even like hand placement stuff, it's like some of those places is like, yes, I understand that jiu-jitsu is a contact sport, and yes, things get kind of like messy, things get pushed all over the place, but there's definitely, you know what your hands are doing, and there's no need for them to be anywhere around here. This is not a good place for anything in jiu-jitsu, right? Like they're either underneath the ribs or on here, like, but and they could be like right on the sternum, but anywhere here, that's not a good place to put your hands in general. And in general, your hands should be doing this anyways. So like, just mind that. Like, I feel like it's easy. I mean, if I can get through years of rolling with people and not doing this to guys or girls on top or bottom, I really feel like guys can also do the same thing. Like, there's no need to do that. But yeah,
I never understood why guys call out girls when there's plenty of other men their size to roll with. Like,
yeah,
it's like we, at least at my gym that I go to, all the gyms that I've been to, they get laughed out if they're like going with girls, especially smaller girls. I'm like, bro, we're trying to train and get good. Like, why are you picking on the smaller girl? And it's never a black belt that does it. It's always like a lower belt that does that shit.
Yeah, I was just saying this too. It's just like, dude, like, you don't know, like, why? I understand if like the instructor's like, hey, can you work with this lower belt? It's like, you know, it's like their first day or whatever. But like, no, don't, no. Why? Like, so like the blue, like blue belt's a little bit more forgivable if they're going with a white belt because they're like close enough. But even still, it's just kind of like,
a blue belt guy with a white belt girl, or like a blue belt girl, like, I don't know. I think the mentality is different. Like that's always been like, why are you doing that? That's kind of creepy to me.
Yeah.
Creep alert in my mind, my creepy side.
Yeah. It's like in fundamentals classes, like we make everybody go with everybody. Sometimes they only have like 15 seconds or whatever to change. So like you grab whoever you can grab. But like in the advanced class, especially when there's time for you to choose who you can roll with, it's like, why is that your first pick? You know, like why is the smallest, like lowest ranking like female in the room your first pick, and you're like, you know, purple or brown belt? Like, it doesn't make any sense. you know, even if you're to say like, oh, you know, I'm injured, I just want to go light, I'm like, there's still smaller guys that you can pick from, you know, like I don't know. I don't get it. Yes, I agree. I agree.
So you're an instructor. Can you talk to us about how you became an instructor and what how you are as an instructor and like your philosophy on teaching?
Okay, so like like a lot of people, I started off with the kids class at Blue Belt, and I started with like the little kids. But I didn't actually start teaching more until like Purple Belt. And so yeah, when I got to Purple Belt, it started off with teaching like the toddlers classes for the kids, and then having like the women's classes. So, and that took some time actually, because um, when I started teaching the women's classes, I was like, well, we have a good amount of women, but I found that they didn't really want to train with each other at first. And I was like, man, what's going on? Like, we have all these women and they keep saying that they want to train with other women, but they really don't try to train with other women. So I was like, what was going on? And then I kind of found out that some of like the white belt, like newer girls, felt like they were being bullied by some of like the blue belt girls. And I was like, you know, bullied being how, you know, like, well, I don't know, like, I'll go with them, and at a certain point, like, you know, like I'm doing things normal, and then if I do something right on them, like I get close to a sweep or something like that, all of a sudden they like go super hard. I'm like, oh, it's like the ego. So I had to have like a sit down talk with my women's class one time when we transitioned from one location to a new location, and it was like a standalone jiu-jitsu academy. I was like, okay, we have to have a meeting, because I'm starting to find out that like even some of the white belt women were trying to like fight like who could be the best white belt woman in the gym. It didn't make any sense. Like, and I found out it was because like some like their husbands or their boyfriends were also training, and like the husbands and the boyfriends would be like, well, like, well, my wife can beat up your wife, or like yeah, it was weird. It was really weird. So like the women were like oddly competitive with each other, and I had to like break that down, like, dude, you can't be competitive with each other. Like, as far as you can be competitive, that's cool, you want to train to compete, but like your opponent isn't your teammate. Your opponent is going to be over at a tournament, not here. So if you're like fighting with your ego because you don't want her to do better than you, but like that's just going to hurt both of you, you know. Like I had like one white belt student once who, she grew up being super athletic, right? Like playing all the sports, good at every single sport that you gave to her, she was good at. She picked up right away, and she's all like super strong, you know. And she had lots of potential for jiu-jitsu, but then for whatever reason she had it in her head that she should be better than this another blue belt student, simply because she was more athletic than her, and the blue belt student was not very athletic, just really good at technique and jiu-jitsu. I was like, I had to explain to her like, no, that doesn't exist, you know. So um after teaching lots of kids and lots of women's classes, and then starting to do like, you know, women's seminars, then I, you know, teaching like fundamentals classes, and then, you know, later on like um seminars and advanced classes. And pretty much my philosophy is kind of like, I always mention it at some point, like, I'm not trying to teach like complete, like, I don't want you to be able to reiterate a technique to me. I don't want to show you something and then you just parrot it back to me. More than anything, I want to teach a concept, and then you can take that concept to wherever and apply it in different ways. Like I can give you like a really fundamental way to apply it, then I can also give you a more advanced way to apply it. So I like giving Lego blocks or Lego pieces, right? Like when you receive a Lego set, right? Like you could make like a castle, right? Like you got the Lego set to make a castle, or you got the Lego set to make a ship, or the Lego set to make a landscape, whatever. But when you take it apart, those are literally just pieces. That piece that came with the castle set isn't just meant to make a castle. It can make a boat, it can make a person, it can make whatever the hell you want to make with it. The idea is that you want to be able to take that Lego piece and not just keep recreating that same castle, but being able to recreate multiple different things. And understanding that you can put them together. Like, I don't want someone to have my jujitsu. I would like for them to have the tools to create their own jujitsu, right? Because like all the concepts that I teach, either came from Caio or they came from, you know, Gustavo Dantas. Like they come from like my main inspirations of learning, right? Like my main instructors. But of course, at some way point, I had adapted it to make it work for me. In that same way, I want to be able to pass something on to somebody and they'll be able to adapt to make it work for them. I don't want them to do a copy of like my sets or my sequences, but if they can make it work for them or like put it together to make something that's unique for them and their body type and their physical capabilities, then that's really what I strive for. So I am a technician at heart. I am one of those where just like you have to understand how something works, understand the mechanism, so then that way you can disassemble it and reassemble it in any which way you want, as opposed to just, again, only being able to make one thing over and over and over and over again. If you never understand how it's meant to work, then you're never going to be able to use it in any other setting, like 2D to 3D to 4D. So I believe everybody can do jiu-jitsu. I believe everything can be modified for whatever someone can or cannot do, right? As far as like if it's a weight or injury or size or flexibility or whatever it is, I feel like everything can be modified to fit. And yeah, I believe jiu-jitsu should be free and open to everybody. So like people should feel free to be creative and to be able to do whatever they want in jiu-jitsu. Of course, like they have like their foundations, but it's open for exploration. And I think that's how anyone becomes like really, really good. I mean, like Caio or Hapsamora or like Mendes brothers or the Miaos, like, or Mikey, Musumasi, like they were all not just doing just fundamental stuff. Like they took the fundamental stuff and then they did something creative with it. And if you just try to seek what they're doing, it's not going to work. But if you seek the concept or the idea of what they're doing and apply it to yourself, then I think you'll find something that's going to be unique that can give back to everybody else.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
How do you balance? Go ahead. Was that Nico?
Beautifully put.
How do you balance the life? How do you balance the life of an elite grappler and a full-time coach while maintaining your mental health? I know me personally, I was going really hard with jiu-jitsu for years. Then at a certain point, I burned the hell out, like burning flames, hitting the ground. Had to take a break. How do you balance that?
Oh shit. Yeah, that was pretty much me last year too. That was like I hit like and mine was bad where it's just like, dude, like plane's going down, it's on fire, and I'm like, no, this is fine. I can hang on a little bit longer. This is cool. And I'm like clearly things are not like at this point last year. I was just kind of like, I can't wait to like get this tournament done with so that I can just have like at the very minimum a 6-month break of not feeling like I had to compete or do anything, because it was really bad. Like we're talking about like questioning my existence, and like I was mentioning earlier, like I had to train and I had to compete in order to feel like I was relevant, like, or else people are going to forget about me, or no one's going to learn from me, or no one's going to want to come to my seminars, or no one's going to want to buy my DVDs. Like just complete like spiraling out of control, but like not wanting to believe that, man, like I was literally just burnt out, like done, like I couldn't. So the balance comes from actually setting boundaries, and that's not just setting boundaries with other people, but setting boundaries with yourself. Like and fortunately and unfortunately, that means you have to be very real and very honest with yourself. And when you do that, sometimes you're not going to like what you see, and you're not going to, it's really easy to be in denial. Like for me, I was always operating under like the mindset that like I need to work hard and I need to struggle in order to succeed. But like that struggle was starting to like seep into like struggle everywhere. Like, dude, like not everything has to be so hard, like, I don't have to be like pulling my hair out or in tears every single day for me to know that I'm in the right path to succeed. There's definitely a healthier way. Because yeah, like I would go to tournaments and I'd be like, I'm going to referee, I'm going to coach, and I'm going to compete. I'm going to do all of it, and I was only able to maintain that for so long until it's just kind of like, oh my God, like I can't do this. I am naturally an introvert. Like people don't realize that because I seem so like personable and friendly, but like I go to like after a tournament weekend, it's like I'm out for a day where I can't function, because it's just like there's so much interacting with other people and so much energy spent on other people where I'm just like, I can't function. And then if you think that like, man, the day after a tournament, like, nope, I have to go right back to the gym and I have to continue right back onto the grind. And it's just kind of like, dude, I'm just digging a grave for myself. Like, this isn't, I can't maintain this. And it's not going to get me any closer to like winning that title or getting that gold medal, or it's not even going to make me a better student or instructor. It doesn't help. It doesn't serve me in any way to like keep beating at myself when I'm already at like, I have nothing, you know? Like, yes, there is a value of like having a certain amount of grit and grind, for sure. Like the hustle definitely is something that should be respected. But as my friend Jiggy would say, like, not without self-compassion. Like excellency without self-compassion is a shit show. Like you have to give yourself the time to like, hey, I'm not doing well. And you have to be honest too. Like I said, like you're not going to like what you see sometimes when you really look into yourself. And sometimes that might have to admitting that like, yeah, I am scared, or like, yeah, I am forcing myself to train a certain way because I believe that if I don't, I lose value as a person, or I will no longer be relevant, or people are going to forget about me, or like some sort of like, I don't say tied into trauma, but there's definitely some sort of like wiring where it's just kind of like, if you're doing this because there's some sort of like, because you want to avoid a negative as opposed to gaining a positive, like there's a problem, you know? And like it just kind of like cancels each other out, right? Like I want to avoid this negative so I can get in this positive, and then the idea that gaining that positive is going to somehow cancel out that negative is not true, you know? Like you're gonna put in all that work and like, okay, so you got that world title. That doesn't, did that fix everything? Like, no, it didn't. Is it gonna take away now like that need in you to like burn yourself out needlessly, like without compassion for yourself, or without like care for yourself? Like, no, that hole is still gonna be there. So this title isn't gonna fill it. I believe, yes, you can have goals, and those are gonna be super important. Like if you want to fulfill it, but make sure that you're also like fulfilling everything that is in here, because no amount of titles, no amount of money is ever going to fulfill that hole that you keep trying to fill up with just being busy with training to the point where like you can't be around people, or you're breaking down every single day, or like you don't want to go to train, you don't want to see, you don't want to put on your gi, you know? Like if you're to the point where you can't even enjoy the hard parts of jiu-jitsu, you know, if that makes any sense, like something's wrong, you know?
I recently read a book about programming for training. It was related to weightlifting, but I think the same principles apply. Like if you overtrain, it can cause you to have severe depression. Like
Yeah.
it can be like a physical response can lead to a psychological response. And I had no idea. But I think a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu community are under the impression that more is better. We're obsessed with more. Some of it, at least in American sports, it comes from the wrestling culture. I remember growing up in the lower belts, we'd watch the Iowa wrestling documentary. It's on YouTube. Everybody that's listening right now should go check it out. It's called The Season. But the whole mentality of working yourself to the bone, being good, and the combination of jiu-jitsu is a year-round sport. Even if we did have seasons, we'd have 2 seasons, whether it be gi and no gi. It can lead to a lot of overtraining and a lot of expectations, not just in our art form, but in other art forms. Social media, this idea of everyone putting their best foot forward online. And now, since everyone's addicted to these stupid things, they're in our hands all the time, and we read and watch them all the time. We have a warped sense of reality. And in a sport that's just so feast or famine, it's no wonder so many people burn out. And, you know, the steroids are kind of a symptom of it. But then again, you know, if you're a young up and coming grappler, you see these guys roided out and they're always competing, always training 3 times a day. You're going to be under the impression that that's what you have to do to compete. Unfortunately, in a lot of ways, it is. It's very few of us that compete clean and are successful. So I can totally feel you on that aspect. I mean, I think mental health in this sport, more than any other one, definitely needs to be put to the forefront.
Definitely, definitely. Like it's so underappreciated and underutilized and underestimated. Like the amount of like disbelief I get from people when I say like, hey, you know, maybe you're hitting a wall not because you're not training enough, but maybe because you're hitting a mental block, or maybe because like, you know, you're trying to hit this hammer on this iron and you're just hoping for this result, but like, man, like you don't have like the mental fortitude, or like something is going on here that you're not addressing, you know. Like I definitely hit that at purple belt. I almost quit competitively at purple belt, and simply just because I couldn't deal with like the mental aspect of jiu-jitsu. Like my complete self-worth was based on my results as an athlete. So like it was just kind of like, well, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I'm just going to have to quit competitively, otherwise mentally I'm going to go to shit, you know. And like finally I started working at purple belt, so it's the reason why I'm better at it now. But you'd be surprised by how many people, like even me going through it and as a black belt now, and I'm talking to students and they're all like, oh yeah, so, you know, and they tell me what their plans are to get ready for this and that tournament, and I'm like, man, like I don't hear any room for you to like breathe or rest, or like where are you mentally in this? Like why are you doing what are you doing, you know? Like is there like an intrinsic or extrinsic, like what's your motivator? And like a lot of it, it's kind of like they're chasing that feel good, and like they don't want to go through anything mildly uncomfortable mentally. Like they're okay with the physical uncomfortable, but like mental uncomfortable, it's like they don't want to deal with it, you know. Like, man, like it could be something like you're afraid of losing, so that's the reason why you train harder, but you don't want to admit that you're afraid of losing, you know, when everything shows that like you put high value, right? You feel super good when you win, but you feel like shit when you lose. And you feel like shit when you lose, not because like not like, oh, because it sucks to lose, even though like losing does suck, but like your emotional and your mental tie to a loss and what it means to you, like on a personal level and on a mental level and your mental health level, it's like it's no longer you lost the match. It's like, oh, in your head you're an actual loser. And if you can't admit that you have that fear, or that you have like that tie to, like, again, the end goal, like, man, yeah, you're going to be suffering a lot. And as much as jiu-jitsu is a form of therapy for people, it is not a replacement for actual therapy when you need it, when your mental health is like when you have mental health issues. Like, it's one thing to have like a bad day, but like if you actually are aware that you have mental health issues and you're like refusing to acknowledge it and get help, like, man, it's like you're bleeding yourself dry. Like you're literally bleeding out and you won't have anything to give, and then you're not going to be able to maintain doing this sport for the rest of your life. And you're not going to be able to do, you know, you won't be able to contribute anymore. Like you're only going to hit a certain point, and then it's either jiu-jitsu is going to go, or like your quality of life is going to go. And that's like the bigger picture, you know.
Got you. One last question. What are your plans for the future? What's new or what's next for you?
Oh my goodness. So like right now, there's just so much uncertainty, you know. Like I can't even have hope in I can say I can't have hope. That sounds so depressing.
Plans.
But
You can't set definite dates.
yeah, you know, like, you know, this year I know, like I wanted to have hope, like, you know, like this year I wanted to like put more consideration into having like, you know, possibility of having my own academy, or even like working with Caio and opening like another affiliate. Like, um, you know, I had these ideas in my head, like, oh, I would really like for 2020 to be this year where like not so much a step back from competing, but like I said, like competing more at masters, so I'm not putting as much pressure on my head, you know, and then being able to finally like pursue like these other goals that were kind of scary because it kind of like requires you to like put roots in, you know. And I've always just been kind of like this free spirit where like I go wherever I want. Like like that fear of like if I have roots then it means I can't travel and then I feel trapped. Mental stuff again. So now it's kind of like I don't want to say I'm afraid, but definitely there's a bit of fear with wanting to plan for things because for fear that I can't have them or it just is not going to work out or this just isn't the time. But I would like I am starting to like work with other programs like free rollers so that we can do like at least like online mentoring, which is I'm really excited to be able to be part of that because I would like to be able to keep teaching because like it's made it apparent like now where this is really really what I want to do for the rest of my life. I had moments where just like, well, maybe I can get like a regular 9-to-5 job or like at one point too, just like how Erin is doing like her thing right now, trying to become a firefighter. At one point I also considered like maybe I'll become a firefighter, you know. But no, like I really do believe that my purpose is in jiu-jitsu and I really want to keep doing that. So hopefully I can do more online mentoring and finding ways to like make technology work so that I can continue to do jiu-jitsu or teach jiu-jitsu and spread jiu-jitsu because I feel like there is a lot that I want to say and I do have a purpose and I don't think like a regular 9-to-5 is gonna do it for me. I don't think that would not be seeing my purpose through. So yes, I would like to have my own gym at eventually some point, or at least have my own team, or like I said, possibly work with Caio so we can open up another affiliate somewhere, maybe on the East Coast. I don't know. I would love to be on the East Coast. So many different things, but like with uncertainty, I'm just scared. I'm scared to hope. I'm gonna admit that right there now. I'm scared. I'm not a big toughie. But hopefully a gym and maybe a family. I don't know. I'm getting older. I'm gonna be turning 34 next week, and I just kind of like I wanna embrace life. So whatever that includes, like while still being able to do jiu-jitsu, I want to do it all. And I'm like finally embracing that. I'm getting old. I'm not old, but like, you know, my bones feel like 70. You know, like.
Yeah. I think that would be great what you said about mentoring because like even when you talk about being old or how we talked about the rankings or some girls that will test about weight or just, you know, some girls or just people in general can get so obsessed or so worried about things and they let it really get to them and really defeat them. So being able to like reach out and talk to people in the sport or in the industry or people they look up to is really helpful. Like I started training jiu-jitsu in Brazil. So like I know Kyle because I would run into Kyle on the street and Kim, like, you know, so to me, like when I started training jiu-jitsu, like everybody was really accessible. You know, you could see Leandro Lowe, like you could see these people on the street. But I don't think what like most people really realize, like if you reach out to people you admire in the sport and like hit them up on Instagram, a lot of them will like respond to you. You know, they have advice, you know, they're willing to have like these conversations. They're not just people like, oh, you see them at IBJJF and you can't ever talk to them, you know. So I think like more black belt females reaching out and try to give advice and have those conversations. Like, are you really worried about the rankings? Like you're a blue belt, like just go have fun. You know, I think that would really, really will have a big influence on the community and inspiring girls, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is my purpose in life. I feel like I just want to encourage and inspire people to like fulfill their purpose or like fulfill their passions, you know, like don't be afraid to go out there because there's definitely more working. There's a lot of things working against you if you believe that there's a lot of things working against you, right? And it's only until that we accept that like, hey, you know, like I don't necessarily need to go with the flow of things. I don't necessarily need to accept my circumstances, right? Like jiu-jitsu, right? I don't need to accept this sweep. I don't need to accept this takedown. I don't need to accept this submission. Like I always have an opportunity to fight out. And like sometimes you get caught. That's cool. You tap, you try again, you know? Like so like not everything is final or fatal and yeah, I definitely know that I needed mentorship when I was younger and I didn't really have it. And now that I'm in a position to give coaching and mentoring, I want to be able to like I want that to be like my legacy. Like I want to be able to pass that on, because like I know how important that is, especially like for younger women or even older women too. Like again, like there are women who are like they start jujitsu now, like in their 30s, and they think like, oh my god, it's too late. I'm like, no, like now is the time, you know, like any time is a good time, you know. And like screw it, if you have a job or you're a mom or you know, whatever, you got kids, you got a relationship, you got whatever you got going in your life, like there's a place for you to make happen what you want to have happen. And whether that means you feel good just being on the mat and you learn like a really good technique, or you have a goal that you want to compete, or maybe one day you want to teach too, and you want to also be a mentor. Like anyone can do it for as long as like you believe you can do it. And sometimes you just need a coach, the right coach or the right mentor, to just help you along the way. You know, I definitely didn't get where I am without coaching and mentoring, and I'm pretty sure both of you could say the same thing, that like having a strong coach or a strong mentor in your life can make a very big difference in your life. And I'm hoping that that's something I can continue to do for the rest of my life.
That's what it's all about. Kristina, thanks for coming on the show. Where can people reach you?
You can always just Instagram, KB Jiu-Jitsu. It's like usually the easiest way. Or Facebook. I'm not even really on Facebook. So just Instagram. Instagram is cool. Or email Kristina@kbjujitsu.com. And yeah, I'm an open book. So you can find me, or tournaments. Say hi if we ever have tournaments again. You know, I always have people say that they want to say hi to me and then they never say hi, and it's kind of weird. But like, hey,
I know so
nice
many
person.
people that are so nervous. Just like, just go talk to her. And I'm an introvert too. I hate talking to people, but you know, like for a certain purpose. People in the jiu-jitsu community are so friendly. Like shy girls need to go out and talk to your idols at competitions.
Yeah. For real. Like, talk to us. Talk to Tim. Talk to me. Ask for photos. We'll do it. And be like, no black belt ever, with maybe the exception of the meows, were just like, no photos. But I think the meows are only like that before they compete. After they compete, then they take all the photos. So, you know, like like I think people have like their certain rituals. But yeah, there has never been a black belt where it's like, no, you can't have a photo with me. Like, we are people. So. You know?
Nico, where can we find you at?
As always, you can find me on No New Nico. Oh no, on Instagram at No New Nico or Favela Jiu Jitsu.
You guys can find me at Tim Spriggs BJJ on Instagram or Facebook. You can go get the Mushmaster collection at favelajujitsu.com store. And for all exclusive content and first up-to-the-minute news on the BJJ Goons, go to bjjgoons.com. Got a lot of exclusive content coming your guys' way. This has been the BJJ Goons podcast. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.